Issues at hand on Family TV, enriching lives.
This is Issues at Hand on Church of Uganda Family TV, and we are continuing with the discussion on taxes. Now, I promised that if you're out there and maybe you're like me and you want to understand taxes more, don't worry, we're going to have a guest who's going to take us through all the meat and bones as far as taxes are concerned. What are taxes and why is it important that we pay our taxes? And my guest today is Miss Hafsa Seguya, who is a tax specialist from Uganda Revenue Authority. She's here to take us through taxes, and hopefully at the end of Issues at Hand we'll be able to understand what taxes are and why it's important for us to pay taxes. Welcome to Issues at Hand.
Thank you and good morning.
Thank you.
My name is Hafsa Seguya, and my duty is to simplify, is to create awareness to the nation. Why taxes? How do you pay them? How do you compute? And what is the beauty in paying taxes? So this morning, I'm glad to be here on Family TV to see that we can speak to the nation. Why taxes? Definitely your government needs taxes. That is the only way your government can solicit resources to see that they can avail the social services that we need. We are looking at roads, we are looking at infrastructure, we look at the roads, we look at hospitals, the education sector, security, and any other national development. So ideally, it is you and me that have to help the government get these taxes. And how do we help government get taxes? Is we do business, or we go and get employed. And when we get employed, ideally, our employers have to deduct pay as you earn. But if we are in business, when we decide to do business, then that means we'll have an income at the end of it all. That is where I'll come and pick the income tax.
But before we go there, and I know we are getting into this discussion, I'd like you to take us through what taxes are, and like you've started already, the different types of taxes, and who is eligible to pay which tax.
Exactly. Taxes definitely is a portion that you give back to government. And as I had started, we have different types of taxes. It depends upon what tax and how we compute it. But ideally, it's a portion that you give back to government. It's like we go to church or we go to the mosque. We give that tithe back to government, back to the church. Then in the mosque, we give sadaqah back to the Lord. So in that same faith or breath is how we give back to government. But having paid, having done business here and there, then from whatever we have sourced as income, then that is where we derive the taxation bit from. But it depends, what tax are you registered for? What are you eligible for in registration? That is where I come up to compute. Because not everybody who has a TIN is registered for all the tax types, no? The tax types have different requirements that come in handy with them. And maybe by default, the status is income tax. So as we register you and give you a TIN, income tax is by default. Because it is income, tax on income. There is nobody who starts a business and does not have a dream of realizing income. So that is where we get the word income tax. We are trying to tax on that very income. But we wait for you, end the year, sum up everything, see what has happened. Because for income tax, in case you can't collect more than 10 million in 12 months or in a year, a span of a year. Ideally, you won't give us taxes. But you will have declared by putting in this return and painting the picture. We have another tax type like VAT. It equally has a threshold. I won't register you for value added tax in the event that you can't make 150 million. As turnover, gross turnover, when I add my income for 12 months, I have to at least make 150 and surpass it. That is when I come in with VAT. And its computation is just 18%. So we have rental income. In the event that you let out property, immovable property, for rent. Immovable, I am excluding things like a car, because a car can move from here to there. But I'm talking about immovable property. That means I'm looking at houses, I'm looking at the arcades, I'm looking at space, because you can't move it. That's immovable property. That is where I get the understanding of rental income. So once you derive income in such a manner where you let it out to those who want to rent the space or those who want to rent the premise. So whatever you get out of that is rental income. That is when I come and tax it. But for rental income, it has been moving. The computations have been differing for about the last 3 years or so. So for this year, we have a policy amendment for rental income that has brought an improvement in how we've been computing. Last year it was different. Then 2020, 2021 and prior, it has been different. So when we look at, those are some of the tax types probably I would mention. Then we also have the excise duty. Excise duty is basically on excisable items. When we go to our act, that's the Excise Duty Act 2014, it has 204. It has a number of items on which we have to pay excise duty. And amongst those, I'll tell you there is fuel, there is diesel, there is fruit juice, there is sugar, there is beer, we have cigarettes. So we have a number of items there. But I don't want you to have an understanding that it is this tax that has brought about the high prices of fuel. Ideally, we have been picking excise duty on fuel, and we pick it per litre. We have been picking. And this year, it didn't even increase. That's a funny bit of it.
So why are the fuel prices hiking? Because a lot of people were saying it may be because the taxes, that excise duty tax may have increased or something of the sort.
No, it did not increase. By the way, what happened, we did not bring any new tax for this year. But we just did amendments or modifications in the existing. Excise duty has been existing for years on fuel. But we didn't even do any modification. It wasn't done. Minister of Finance didn't do any modification. So I would give you an example. If I'm picking about 1,350 per litre of petrol, then diesel is about 1,050 per litre, just about there. Those are rough figures there. So ideally, they didn't increase. What used to happen last year, last financial year, is what is happening now. But you'll ask me, why are the figures skyrocketing? There could be a number of factors why they could skyrocket. One, we could probably look at our colleagues in Russia and Ukraine. Definitely, when that war keeps on moving, it has a multiplier effect. I wouldn't assign it 100%, but it has a multiplier effect on why these figures are skyrocketing. And secondly, when the war is still there, we have realized that we are receiving less vessels of fuel, say a month. If we're receiving maybe about 4 vessels a month or 5, now we could say we could receive maybe 1 vessel a month. And that 1 vessel, when I talk about a vessel, is a ship that docks in with fuel. So that means there should be scarcity to some extent, because it needs the fuel to move the fuel, because this ship uses fuel energy, whether diesel or what, but it uses that. So ideally, whatever is happening that requires fuel has to skyrocket. And maybe other factors could come in that maybe could best explain by the Ministry of Minerals and Oils, to best explain to us why exactly we are seeing what we are seeing. But on a face value, there are things that are obviously seen, but maybe a detailed analysis can be given to us maybe by that ministry to give us where we were maybe for the last 5 years and why it is happening like this, what could be their projections and how they are going to mitigate it. Because
I saw an article, I read an article from one of our newspapers,
yes,
and where a leader from Uganda Revenue Authority spoke about how some of these people who are in the fuel industry are hoarding fuel, and that's why one of the reasons why the prices might
exactly that is also one of the players that I didn't want to go into in depth, because when you look at the Ugandan economy way back in the 1990s, government was managing or regularizing the trade, but now ever since it's liberalized, I mean every fuel company does whatever they think will help them get a profit. Either they are manipulating us to some extent or otherwise. So maybe at the end of the day, it will need going back on the drawing board and maybe re-engaging them and maybe seeing how they can regulate them better. Because once they are not properly regulated, more so in the prices, then it is us, the local people, who are going to suffer. Because once you regulate them that you shouldn't exceed this, this is the upper limit. In case of this is how we should do. But now, I mean, there is no agreement that binds them to do what we want. It's just on humanitarian grounds. That's why when you're driving around, you say, let me try this. This fuel station, no, it's a little high. This one is a little lower by 20 shillings. Let me buy here. Because, I mean, there's
no standardization.
Exactly, there's no standardization because it went liberal and they're in business, doing business.
Well, thank you for telling us about that and the different kinds of taxes. You mentioned income tax, pay as you earn, value-added tax, rental tax, excise duty tax. But then the question now is, and going back to taxes, the whole conversation on taxes, even before we get into how we pay taxes and the benefits, URA, Uganda Revenue Authority, is a big player when it comes to taxes. Can you take us through the mandate of Uganda Revenue Authority and our relationship as maybe business owners and people who pay taxes with URA?
Thank you very much, Bruno. Our mandate as URA is to assess, collect, account for government revenue. We advise government on different policy amendments. We advise, we create awareness, we do tax education. So basically our work rotates around there, but it does not it may not go further, maybe in the appropriation. That is not within our mandate. Even the advising, we advise government, but it's like I advise you. You could choose to take my advice, you could choose to stay it. So it depends on what you choose, but at least we advise government because we are the ones who deal directly with these clients, and these amendments are exactly impacting on the clients. So that is why we give our advice to government to tell them that, look here, this amendment probably has caused what you're seeing here, has translated into this behavior, has translated into this revenue, or has failed to translate in this revenue. So at least that is one of our mandates that we do. But ultimately, the last person is a supervisor, that's Ministry of Finance. Whatever it pronounces is what we have to implement at the end of the year.
Definitely, definitely. Okay, so now we know what Uganda Revenue Authority does in terms of collecting taxes and ensuring and advising the relevant authorities on how these taxes should be utilized. But now on the issue of taxes, and I know there are a lot of things to get into, and one of the qualms that many people have about taxes is where is the penalties and the new penalties that are coming on board. But even before we go to that, take us through how we pay taxes.
How do you pay taxes? You wake up, Bruno, one morning, you have a dream to start a business, wherever it is. The first thing I would advise you is register the business name of your business with Uganda Registration Services Bureau. Then they will give you a certificate. If it is a corporate body, then they'll give you a certificate of incorporation. Then you move on by registering it for taxes. That is when we assign a TIN to you as an individual. If it is a business name, we could assign you, Bruno has this TIN trading as Bruno Enterprises. If it is limited, we will assign the company a TIN and equally assign the directors that follow through a TIN each. Because this company is an individual. As I'm looking at you, the company, I will equally look at the individuals that manage this company back end. So we have started the journey. Let me imagine you're starting to work now. The first thing you should ensure that you do is to keep records. Simple records, business records. Keep records on how you sell. That means you're going to be issuing out those invoices or receipts. Then keep records on how you expense, even how you purchase if you're dealing in goods. That will inform you or will draw a picture at the end of the year what kind of return you're pushing to me. Because just imagine you remembering what happened at the beginning of the year. You may not be able to remember everything. But these records will help you draw a picture. So that by the time you are coming at the close of the year, you can ably draw a picture for me through that return. Paint that picture, tell me these are the sales that have managed to come through and these are the expenses. On top of that, I have purchases to this. Because I need to ascertain which income I'm going to charge to tax. Because I don't charge the gross income. Ideally, I have to knock off the expenses that have helped you in deriving this income. I'll have to knock off the purchases so that at the end of the day, I am looking at the chargeable income, the income we are going to charge to tax. So that is how the journey starts. And every tax type that you're to pay in URA, TIN is mandatory. We triggered our system. It cannot allow any payment without a TIN. Reason, we do not want you to pay money that goes in the suspense account. We want to account, as the mandate says, I'm accounting for Bruno's payment. When Bruno paid me 50,000, it was against what? Income tax. If Bruno is paying me maybe 35,000, it is against stamp duty because he's renewing a license, a third-party license. Let me hope you are aware that on your third-party license of the car, you have stamp duty that you pay of 35,000. So we want to make sure that whatever you pay goes onto your account, goes onto your ledger. So that at the end of the day, when somebody wants to see the picture of how you've been contributing to national development through taxes, it's easier for us. So that is why we triggered each and every payment to come through via a TIN.
A tax identification number.
Yes, a tax identification number. And by the way, we'll give them out for free.
How is it generated? How can one get a
You don't need to generate it, it's just to generate. Just go on the system, and now we even have a simpler mechanism of instant TIN. It's just a one page. As you fill it, give us your details, give us your biodata, a few details with biodata, and use your NIN. Because when you input the NIN, it will auto-populate. I'm trying to save you the typing here and there, because the NIN has to auto-populate what pertains yourself. Your names, your date of birth, your phone, and probably your ancestral background, a little bit of that. So you fill in a few things like source of income. I'd want to know, are you in business? Are you going in employment? Something like that. Then off you submit. As you submit, at the click of submission, the system assigns you an instant TIN. That is how fast and that is how easy we have designed it. We do not want you to fail to get business because you fail to get a TIN. Because my TIN is here, it's meant to facilitate business. If I don't facilitate business, where are you going to get the income? Because I need to come for income tax at the end of the year or half year. So I have to make sure I put mechanisms in place to enable this business environment on your side, so that actually you can try to see how you do business easier or get business, so that I basically come for tax when I am sure you've gotten some business. So those are the system improvements we keep on doing every now and then to see that we address the challenges that we get from our clients.
Thank you for taking us through how we can pay taxes. And I know many of us have questions. That's why at Issues at Hand we give an opportunity to give us your questions, or give us your comments in terms of what you have heard from our guests. Again, Issues at Hand is a program where we tackle different issues concerning our society. So if you want to reach us and talk to us or send your questions, please send us a WhatsApp message on our WhatsApp number. That's 0787 447 684, 0787 447 684, and we shall definitely read out your comments and your queries. I know we have so many questions as regards taxes. I know from what Ms. Hafsa has explained, many of us are wondering about different types of taxes, how we pay taxes. Maybe you'd like to understand more what is your responsibility as far as paying taxes is concerned, and then about a TIN number, and so much more. We're going to understand together, and at the end, it's our hope that we shall be able to understand why it's important for us to pay taxes, and what it means to our country, and what it means to our community, and most especially as Church of Uganda Family TV, what it means to our family, why it's pertinent that we pay taxes. For now, let's get into a very quick breather, very quick, after which we continue this discussion on taxes, and we get to hear your comments and your queries, and especially we're going to get into a very good discussion on a contentious issue, which are the new penalties as far as tax evasion is concerned from Uganda Revenue Authority.
Issues at Hand on Family TV, enriching lives.
Issues at Hand continues here on Church of Uganda Family TV with Bruno, Edgard, and my guest for today is Miss Hafsa Seguya, who is a tax specialist hailing from Uganda Revenue Authority. Now, in recent news, we received the news that Uganda Revenue Authority is planning, actually the plan, I believe, has been set in motion, and you'll tell us how quick the implementation is going to happen. But we are hearing that as far as tax penalties are concerned, when whoever evades paying a tax or misses paying a tax can be liable to pay up to 100 million in penalties. How feasible is this? Do you really expect, especially business owners in this kind of economic situation, to pay such a heavy penalty?
Thank you very much, Bruno. When we set a penalty, we do not set a penalty because you can afford to pay it. Because if you afford to pay it, it becomes normal. It is no longer a penalty. It has to be punitive to deter you doing what you want to do. That is why a penalty is there. So you who is seeing it as being too harsh, don't look that side. Look at compliance. And by the way, the cost of compliance is way cheaper. The cost of compliance is way cheaper. Because just imagine, because that came about when we were looking at our clients, those who normally understate or do misdeclarations here and there, despite having talked to them, warned them and all that. So what happens is a penalty came through this year in the policy amendments that said that if there is a misstatement or misdeclaration of your transactions, the penalty has been 4 million initially. Now it's going to be 110. Definitely by the time I put it at 110, I am looking at you moving away from that behavior. I don't even want to talk about the penalty. Yes, I know it's very high, and the economic situation is not the best. But even though it was the best, sincerely, why do you give in 110 million as penalty? What has failed you in complying? Are you aware, Bruno, we even have hand-holding sessions where we hand-hold you to see that you can file that return, where we teach you of how to file it. Then after doing all that and you choose not to declare, or you choose to understate. So that is where issues come in. And by the way, when you're choosing to understate, I think you are just disturbing yourself. Ask me why. Because your purchase is somebody else's sale. The other person is going to declare it, and that is how I'm going to know. And your sale is one's purchase. So ideally, you may say you're under declaring, but you can't trade alone. The people you traded with in that month or that year are going to declare. And that is how I'm going to get you. I think, ladies and gentlemen, let us not even think of going that side. Let us look at the complying.
Definitely. Let us comply. So
let us comply, because the cost of compliance is low. We do all it takes to see that we help you, we guide you, we do the teaching, we do the hand holding. And by the way, we move to premises of these clients to see that we bring services closer to you. We want to reduce the cost of doing business. So you don't need to bring in that accountant. Let me help you. Is it the return for small businesses? Have you failed? Put this here, put here yourselves, put this here. Then get an assessment. And if it's not there, well and good. We'll wait for you the following year. And ideally, when you look at people, some are people who are understating. But when you look at putting them right, you even discover there was no tax payable that year. But either it was ignorance or it's just a habit. But some people, it's even ignorance. They think that everything has to come with a payment.
Because you can file a tax of no return.
Exactly. Where you didn't do anything, or you did, but ideally, your expenses surpassed your income. That means it puts you in a credit position where you will just carry it forward to the following, probably, yeah. And that is income tax. So why don't you make use of that?
Definitely. So
I want the listeners and viewers to get out that fear of them, that whoever has a till has to be paying every now and then. No. You pay when you have got income. You only pay when you have employment. When your employer exceeds 235 in paying you, that is when I come to tax the excess. And that is pay as you earn. Your employer withholds it from your salary before paying you and passes it all to simplify your work so that I don't give it to you and it gets lost within yourself. That is pay as you earn. For VAT, you are registered for VAT. Just add that 18% onto your price, your reserve price that is comfortable to you. Just pass it on. It's a multi-stage tax. It will be borne by the last person, the final consumer, because ideally the final consumer is not in business. But you who is in business, you can get the credit. If you pay, then when you file, show us what you paid and show us where you received when you sold. So we look at the two, VAT on your sales, VAT on your purchases. If VAT on your sales exceeds the purchases, then the difference is what you give us. If the VAT on your expenses or purchases exceeds sales, then you don't pay us. So I think at times it's ignorance of how to do what that lands our clients into such circumstances.
And that's why we are talking about this here today on Issues at Hand. And speaking about fears, we have some WhatsApp, some comments from our WhatsApp, and I'm sure people would like you to address their fears or concerns. Now, Muchibi Carl from Muyenga writes, "Thank you, Madam Seguya, for that clinical elaboration. However, why does URA favor foreign investors than the indigenous hustling businessmen or investors?"
We don't favor foreign investors, but I know what he's talking about, where we have the tax holidays, the incentives.
Definitely.
We just set, or Ministry of Finance just sets a clear path of who is going to benefit from such an incentive. You should be an investor who is ready to invest. For example, I would say $50,000 US. So ideally, most of our locals here may not have that money. And those who choose to have the money have different priorities. They are not willing to invest it in that manner. Maybe they are willing to build a building. Yet my incentives do not include a building. We are looking at sectors when you are investing, say, in a manufacturing sector, in a free zone. What am I looking at? You are going to create jobs. And I am looking at you employing locals because I want your wage bill 75% to be payment to locals. I am looking at you using raw materials that are available in the country, at least to a tune of 70%. That means you'll have given market to those who have the raw materials locally. I am looking at you putting up this establishment. That means infrastructure will be managed. The road to that factory definitely will be worked on. So that the benefits that come through with somebody who is investing in that way, at times, that is why we have foreigners who may pick it up. But it doesn't have any limitation. Even a Ugandan can do it, but just because our priorities in investment vary. Because you've seen many buildings come up. It's not that Ugandans don't have money, but that's not their priority. They don't want to do a manufacturing plant. They don't. They tell you, for me, I want 5 buildings, and off I go. But the buildings don't come in my bracket. I need a manufacturing industry for me to call you an investor. You have invested that much money because, one, you are going to give employment to our people. You are going to buy the raw materials.
And you're going to help in the in infrastructure
development. So that is why we give you such incentives, to push you to help us, or help government invest in some sectors.
I hope you have heard Muchiri Carl. That is a very elaborate answer. Now, Semwanga Stanley from Kampala asks, how does URA regulate vehicle taxation with cost price estimates, even when we present valid documents of the actual purchase and cost of these vehicles?
Thank you very much. Way back when we were managing taxes, import duty on vehicles, we were basically looking at the invoices they used to present. So we are taking it on face value, looking at what you've presented, then assessing you by that. But what we discovered, invoices started coming from Uganda, as far as Nasa and Nkuruma. So when we make a check, because we have liaisons there, when we make a check with those countries, say Dubai or China or wherever the cars come from, the invoices they have flagged to us are not genuine. They have never appeared in the records of those people. So we said, let us see how we can standardize. We created indicative value guides to guide you that if you are bringing in a premium, for example, CC 1,500 of this year of manufacture, this engine, it is supposed to go for this value. So we predetermine the value of the vehicle for you. That is where I think he's talking about. We gave the public chance to use what they bring, but when they misused it, so we had to standardize so that our clients, at least our taxes, have a clear computation method. So that is why we have the indicative value guide, where we pick the values from what we have. I don't mind whether you bought that vehicle at 1,500, but my value here in the indicative value guide could be about 2,300. So that is what we go with and compute basing on that value. Yes. Wow,
that has answered it appropriately, and that is also one of the questions that has been lingering in my mind concerning taxation. And then Stanley Jemba from Naguru asks, what is the criteria in categorizing taxation of different businesses, especially the SMEs with a capital base of less than 5 million?
What we are doing when we are categorizing or looking at taxation, I am not looking at the capital base. I am looking at, can you have a gross income for the year that exceeds 10 million? For the small ones. If you don't make 10 million for the whole year, it is okay. You file that return and tell me, I have money to sell 4 million. The system will return nil tax. Because I have to put a cap where I expect you to be. Sincerely, I can't tax a business of 5 million. It's unfair. Then when will it grow? How will it grow the capital base? Yet I am taxing it at the onset. When it's starting with 1 million, I want it to go to 2 million, I'm busy taxing it. So we created a ceiling where if you can make 10 million and above, that's when my taxing bit comes in, especially for SMEs. That is how we do it.
Thank you, thank you. And that's why it's important that we have you here on issues at hand, because it is sensitizing us and it's opening us to the realities as far as taxation is concerned, and we are getting cured and delivered of ignorance. Now, when it comes to sensitization, Mr. Justin Akabuka from Kasubi says, I think URA should organize more sensitization talks to help the public understand the benefits of taxation and why we pay taxes. Is there any plan to do so?
Thank you very much. Not that we don't have a plan. We have an improvement or a continuous plan. We have been sensitizing year in, year out. So before COVID, we were doing the physical sensitizations where I come and it's a face-to-face. So when COVID came in, we needed to go back and see how we can make it better. So we adapted the virtual ones. So we do webinars, we do Zoom engagements, we upload them on YouTube. So that when you get your time, because we know that at the time I am planning for an engagement, you're also equally looking for money or doing something else. So in the event that you miss it, we record it and upload it on YouTube.
Is
so that you can
the URA YouTube channel?
Exactly. You can just go on YouTube, type in URA TV. You will see all the sessions of what we normally do, so that you can do personal learning or improvement from day to day, because we are still doing it. But we have to be cognizant of the fact that we have new businesses that come up each and every day. So I might have sensitized a lot this year, but I missed that business. That is why we do a continuation. And by the way, when we are sensitizing, we normally do it in collaboration of other government agencies, so that we don't do a replica. We do it with a KCCA, because some of our taxes are cross-cutting. When I have rental income tax here, KCCA has property rates. So we need to create a distinction on what comes in where. So we do it with still URSB to help you, give you the beauty of why this business needs to be or have a registered name. So we do it with Ministry of Local Government, because we can't operate in only Kampala. We operate in the municipal councils that are across the country. So that is how we normally do it, and we even stretch ahead and go and partner with banks. Recently, a Uganda Finance Trust was operating organized sessions of women in business. Why? Because they are going to give them money to start up. But they want you to start up knowing that there is an obligation here to register. And how do you know whether you are paying? And what are you paying? How do you compute it? So we partner with such agencies so that we can reach out to the bigger audience and see. Yes, it's very good, but definitely we put in a lot each and every year to see that we can reach that person there, wherever they are.
Fantastic. And in 1 minute, please give us your final remarks and why it's important for us to pay taxes.
Thank you very much. In 1 minute, why it's important for us to pay taxes. Definitely we need to, it's a civil duty. 1, 2, we need to support the government. You want the government to give you that road. You want it to pay that teacher. You want it to improve the remuneration of that doctor. We want a better school in your home area, a better hospital. A grade 3, is it what are they, dispensaries or clinics or whatever they are. We want them. And how are they going to come to reality? It is you and me who have to sacrifice. And by the way, I don't know whether our viewers know that the grants we receive or the aid we receive from other countries, it is part of the tax collected in excess, so that they can have a bit to send to us. So why can't we see that we mobilize resources domestically? It is me and you and I guess we can. If each of us pays that little, I think we'll be there, so that we don't have a few businesses that we nag. Let each of us pay that little according to how your income is. Then at the end of the day, we'll have the desired revenues that the country needs, and will definitely put the country to explain to us why the resources are not there, and maybe why the services are not there. But let's do our part. After doing our part, we have our representatives, we have the MPs that can come up and tell us what went wrong. If we paid, if you are collected, then what went wrong?
What went wrong? Hopefully, we'll also be asking what went right, and definitely what went right on issues at hand today is having you over to take us through taxes. Thank you so much, Ms. Hafsa Seguya, for taking us through the benefits of paying taxes, and we continue to learn together as Church of Uganda Family TV that as a family we need to pay our taxes, because it affects education, it affects health, and that means it affects us as a family. So please pay your taxes, and pay your taxes on time. Thank you for joining us on Issues at Hand. Please, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. God richly bless you.
The views expressed on this show are not necessarily those of this television or its management, but as of individuals as we hear them. Family TV, enriching lives.